everybody, welcome back to this DIY Mom Life. I'm Kendra, and in today's video I'm going to take you through as I dye some fabric for a quilt. Now this isn't all that different than dyeing fabric for other projects, but I thought it might be interesting to some of you who are interested in taking on this project for yourself to see kind of the steps that I take to start with just some unbleached cotton and end up with fabric that is usable to sew into a quilt. So let's jump in.
Now, I jumped into this by checking online for fabric sources. However, I found that a lot of the solid white fabrics had polyester in them, which is not what you want. So I went to my local fabric store, Fabricland, and I found some unbleached cotton muslin, and this was something that was good to go into in person to be able to check the thickness, because you really don't want to get something too thick, too canvasy, anything like that. You want it to be like typical quilting cotton. However, going with either a white or an unbleached gives you the opportunity to do some dyeing with it. Once you have your fabric, you'll want to give it a wash and let it soak in washing soda or soda ash for several hours. I've made a little game plan of what I need and divided my fabric into multiple pieces. I need one extra large piece that is going to be quite dark, the next size down is going to be a blue, a lighter color, and then I've got 6 other pieces that are kind of a combination. So I start by just mixing all of my dyes, and even though I have like 6 bright colors, they're not all going to be totally separate. I'm going to do different ways of dyeing, so I want them all to kind of be within one color story. So I'm practicing just dyeing all my pieces, and by dyeing right now I'm just mixing the colors, and I'm not being very precise. As you can see, it's just a lot of mixing and stirring and mixing and stirring of different colors until I'm happy with what I have. Now I'm going to go ahead, and you can see 2 buckets here, the blue being added on the left, and on the right will be the darker color. I go ahead and add it in, and I make sure that the water that I am mixing it with has soda ash or washing soda in it as well, so that it's soaking in it not just ahead of time but throughout the dyeing process, as this helps the color fix to the fabric. I've gone and kind of done an accordion fold of this blue fabric, and it's very loose because I do want the color to kind of go through it. However, I really want that dyed variation on all of my fabrics. With this dark color, I'm just adding it throughout, and you can see that certain portions are kind of floating to the top and capturing air. So I do want it to all have a dark grayish color to it. However, I'm happy to have a mottled look. Now we're moving to my smaller pieces, and my game plan here is really just to be able to have a different effect on each one to kind of experiment. You can see I'm working outside, and with my first I'm folding it, and you really just using different ways of having resists or tie-dye sorts of effects, but again, I'm just keeping to this same sort of color family with pinks, purples, blues, and there's a little bit of some yellowish green in there as well. The second fabric here, I'm just kind of crumpling up and adding a mixture of this pink, and again, it's just trial and error, and you can see the wind's kind of been bothering me here, doing lighter tones and darker tones and just practicing layering those dyes on. On my next piece, I'm going to try doing a more typical tie-dye spiral shape, and I've just been pinch the center and swirl it around. Again, I'm not being precise because I don't want it to have a white spiral in the middle. I just want to have that variation. Then I'm adding some pink in the middle and purple around the edges, and making sure to flip it over to get the bottom as well. This next piece is more folding, and again, I'm just trying to use different combinations of my colors, and so I'm going to try to do kind of a gradient between purple and pink by starting in the purple and then dipping the other end in the pink after. My next one is just pushed into a small container, which again will create that variation. I'm not going to be stirring them regularly, and I'm trying to get that smooth dye, but just adding my colors together. So I'm just going to continue on. You can see different ways that I'm doing this here. You can always search different sorts of dyeing techniques to give you some ideas, and it's just really fun to play around with all the different options that you can come up with to create the different looks for your fabrics. So here is what I have right now. I went ahead and added a little bit of dry powder dye over top. You can see on a few of the colors. And that's just to give, again, more variation after it's been sitting in the solid for a little while. The large bucket dyes on the inside here, I've added a little bit of powder too, again, just for the variation. Now I need to worry about my batching. Now you could leave them in where they are, however I've decided to kind of wrap them in this garbage bag and let them sit in the sun. And really it needs to be batched for at least a couple days. I'm trying to keep kind of the same colors together because the dye may run, and just folding it up and making sure that it is sealed within the garbage bags. I'm going to go ahead and do this with all of my fabrics. They're sitting in the sun in the daytime, and then I just pulled them just to make sure they didn't get wet at night. After they have batched for a couple days, we are ready to rinse them out. And so I start by just doing them one at a time. Once they're fairly well rinsed in the bathtub, I then bring them to the washing machine and do my final rinses there. And yeah, you just want to make sure that you get all of the dye out. You don't want there to be any bleeding after it's been sewn together, or when it's going to cause problems bleeding onto other colors within your quilt. Now you can see a little peek here of the different fabrics as I unfold them. Unfortunately, my footage once they were dry was deleted, and so you can kind of take a peek here and then see once I've been already working with it a bit. But I just want to get them all washed and dried, and then I like to press them really well and iron them so that they look more comparable to other sewing fabrics. Now here are my fabrics all starting to be sewn together. You can tell I've got strings everywhere. This is completely unfinished, but you can get a little look at how those fabrics that you dyed from that basic unbleached cotton muslin fabric become something really interesting, and you know, you were really a big part of making it into this quilt. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more from me, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.